Hi, and welcome back. Today on Perfect Imperfections by Dior, we are going to talk about bananas. Ever have a banana that you didn't eat and it got brown? Some people don't like brown, some people can't eat brown. But today, brown is going to be our friend. We're going to make banana bread. Never made it? That's okay. I'm going to help you out. So, some ingredients that we need, of course, bananas, ripe. They can be this ripe or they can be at least spotted, but you want them pretty ripe because they will blend better. And then you want some butter. I use unsalted butter. It doesn't have to be this brand, but butter. You can also use margarine or oil, but who doesn't like butter? You'll need some cooking spray. I'm also using butter flavored cooking spray, so just need that for it not to stay. And then you'll need a toothpick for later when it's almost done and you want to ensure that it actually is done. So you'll use this to test the doneness. We are going to use baking powder. In this big container, I have flour, all-purpose flour, and I have some vanilla extract. If you want to use the imitation one, honestly, you can, not a problem. It's going to work nearly the same, not exactly, but pretty close, and it's cheaper. Salt. Use a little bit, just a little bit of salt, okay? And then in the smaller container, I have some granulated sugar, which is white sugar. You can use sugar in a raw. Do not use powdered sugar. Please don't use that one. And then brown sugar. You can use golden brown or you can use dark brown. It doesn't matter that much, but I have golden brown, so that's what I'm using. And then you'll need parchment paper or wax paper. Make sure that it is microwave and baking safe because some are not, or so I've heard. I don't buy it that often. Um, Walnuts. This is optional. I like walnuts in mine. Most people that I make it for, they actually enjoy walnuts as well. But you can use chocolate chips. You can use coconut maybe. I'm thinking about a coconut one. You can use a different nut or you can not use nuts at all. It really just depends on what you want to do. But I'm going to use walnuts. And then you'll definitely need a can or two depending on how many you're going to get. Sorry, that's kind of loud. And then measuring utensils. It can be a measuring cup, whatever you use to measure. Some people don't measure at all, and I'm a little bit guilty of that. Most of the time, I just like dump it in. But that's usually with cooking. With baking, you kind of need to measure things out to make sure that it doesn't go haywire on you. So I have 1 cup. I have 1 teaspoon, not tablespoon, teaspoon, and 1/4 of a teaspoon. So these are the 3 measurements that I'll be needing for this recipe. And then I also have 2 eggs, large eggs, and some supplies. So I recommend having 2 bowls. Sorry. Wow, that was probably extremely loud. But 2 bowls, and then this jar I'm going to use to melt the butter, and then I'm going to use the fork and the spatula, and or sometimes I go in between. Really, you only need one. We don't need a mixer. You can use a mixer, but you don't need one. It's not mandatory. Trust me, I bake a lot. So, although I'm not a professional baker or chef, in my kitchen, in my house, Chef Dior is in the house. So let's get started. I'm going to measure out some things, but before I do that, I am going to turn on the oven because that's very important. We're going to bake it at 350 degrees Fahrenheit, and we're going to get the oven going. Now, if you are using nuts when you turn on the oven, that's a good time to toast them, but you can increase the temperature and then lower it and wait for it to level out. You can not toast the nuts. That's fine. You can toast them on the stove. There's many options, and I'll probably make a video at some point about that. You can also melt your butter in the oven. Softened butter is typically ideal, but we don't always need to use it. We might forget to take it out and let it get softened. So you can melt it. And like I said, you can use margarine or you can use oil as well, but I prefer using butter. What I'm actually going to do with my butter is I'm going to melt it in the microwave. And when you do that, you don't want to melt it for too long. I usually go like every 10-15 seconds, stop it, swirl it around, check it, and then go from there. But you can also just plop one of these in your pan and then let it melt in the oven. That's fine too. I'm just not going to do it that way today. I have done it that way before, but I'm not doing it that way today. I want to show you that I did melt my butter in the microwave, and this was 30 seconds. So I did 15-second increments. I turned it on for 15 seconds. Once it hit 15 seconds, stopped the microwave, took it out, swirled it a little bit, then put it back in for another 15 seconds, and now I have one whole stick of butter melted here. So I want to talk to you about the nuts in case you're using them. So these nuts that I have are halves and pieces. You can even have whole ones. It's up to you. But this piece is pretty big, and I don't think people want to bite into this when they're eating the bread. So I always break them down. And there's a couple ways you can do it. One of the ways that I do it is sometimes I'll put it in a little Ziploc baggie. Probably not this size, usually a little bit bigger, but it also depends on how many you're using. So I would use this and then use a can or anything you have handy and just smash it down. Now another thing that you can use is you have one of these handy dandy tools. Then you can just put some in there, and this is actually one of the easier ways. So you drop a few in there. Of course, you can do more than this at a time, and then you're going to just press down on it, and it breaks it up pretty good. So it's broken up. If you have a lot of time on your hand, or maybe you have little kids helping you, one thing you can do is tell them to do the tedious work of breaking it by hand. And it's not that hard, it's just a little bit time consuming. So, depending on what you have going on, if you have people helping you, maybe you want to try that, give them something to do, maybe you don't. Okay, so I've crushed up some walnuts. How many you use or how much you use is really up to you. This bag is a 3-ounce bag, and I didn't even use, I probably used about half of it. But honestly, it's up to you. And it depends on what you want to do. Some people want to put nuts inside and on top. Some just want it on top. Some just want it inside. And some don't want it at all. But like I said, it's really up to you. You can go nuts as much as you want to or chill out a little bit. So my oven is already at 350 degrees. I'm going to put this in the oven. I didn't spray it with anything. I'm using the pan that I'm going to be baking my bread in. So I'm cutting down on dishes because everyone loves to cut down on dishes, right? All right, so we'll put this in the oven. Just be careful. It is hot. And next we're going to deal with our bananas. So these are pretty ripe, super ripe. And I'm just going to open them up, take the skin off, and put them in the bowl. Now I'm using the smaller bowl because the only thing I'm really going to use this bowl for is to mash up these bananas. And I'm going to use my fork to mash it up. Now how smooth you mash up the bananas is really up to you. Some people like it a little bit chunky, some people don't. That's really determined by you. And how ripe your banana is will also determine how much effort it would take to make it smooth or not. So usually I will use 3 to 4 bananas. I have 4 bananas here that are super ripe, so I'm just going to use all 4 of them. Now those are in. We are going to use my fork that made so much noise earlier. I'm still sorry about that. So right now I'm just going to use it to mash it and mix it. And once again, how smooth you want it is really up to you. These were so ripe. They still smell really good. Really good. If you're diabetic, I don't know if this is true or not. I'm not a doctor, but I've heard that diabetics cannot eat ripe bananas because the more ripe the banana is, the sweeter it is. Now, I don't know how that plays out when you make banana bread, but if you're diabetic, do your research on that because we want you here for a long time. We don't want no issues over some bread, okay? So, look how smooth that is already, and it's been just a few swivels, okay? So I'm gonna put this off to the side. Now, because this fork has banana on it, doesn't mean I need to get a new fork. Everything I'm making has to do with banana, so I'm gonna use this fork again. Got my big bowl because now we're pulling out the big guns. Now, typically what I like to do first is mix the butter and the sugar. And you can see my butter is starting to get solid again just a little bit because it's cooling down. But that's okay because I don't need it perfectly melted. So what I'll do is I'll pour my butter in. Now I did pull out another measuring cup because I wanted to do it the way I really do it. You can use all white sugar if that's what you have. I've never tried it with all brown sugar, but if that's what you got, use it. So I actually like to mix them. You only need 1 cup of sugar, but I'm going to use half of each. So I pulled out my half cup measuring cup, and I'm going to measure out half white. And like I said, you can also use sugar in a raw. That's okay. So half of that, and then half of my golden brown, and just plop that in there. So now I'm done with sugar. Sugar is over with in this recipe, and I like to put things away as I go, but I don't want to leave you guys. I don't want you to feel too neglected. So I'm just going to use my fork to mix this up pretty good. I know a lot of people are going vegan or watching what they're doing. I don't know if monk fruit works well in this. I've never tried it. I definitely am not going to try equal or stevia. Stevia? Is that how you say it? You could try it if you want, but I'm not going to do it because I don't really like those. Monk fruit, I will be interested to try one day, but not today. Okay, so this is mixed up pretty good. Now, the next thing that I want to add is eggs, okay? Now, I know some of you, like I just said, are going vegan. You can substitute eggs for applesauce. I've done it before in a cake, came out fine. I've done it in some other recipes, came out fine. So applesauce, but use the unsweetened one, please. Don't add more sugar to this. It has enough sugar. So use the unsweetened applesauce instead of eggs, and then it will work just the same. Now, I like to mix my eggs before I put it in, just to make sure that the yolk and the white is completely mixed, but you don't have to. You could just dump them right in, and that's fine too. So, bakers call this the wet ingredients because they're wet. All right, next we'll have our vanilla. This is pure vanilla, but I told you you can use vanilla, the imitation one. I haven't tried the Mexican blend one, but that might be good. You can try it. We only need 1 fork. Don't go crazy with this, okay? Drop that in. Now for salt, I'm not a huge salt fan. A lot of people are, but me, I'm really not. So what I'm going to do is just really not measure. If you want to measure, you can, but I don't. And I'm going to put everything in the description, all the measurements that I use. So really, I just do a sprinkle. Just a sprinkle. And then we'll mix that up. The last things we're going to mix up is our baking powder and our flour. So for baking powder, we are going to use 1 teaspoon, and we're going to use 2 cups of flour. I've mixed everything in to here. One reason why I really like using glass bowls, especially with baking, is to ensure that everything is mixed. Sometimes at the bottom you'll still have flour or something that didn't get mixed through. So I can see, but I can also look here and at the bottom and see, is it all mixed? So glass bowls are my friend when it comes to baking and cooking. And we are going to add walnuts because that's what I want to add in mine. But if you're not adding walnuts, this is a step you can skip. I've already taken my walnuts out of the oven that were in there in my pan, and I'm going to use some for the top and some for inside, so I'm not going to pour all of them in here. But this pan is still hot, so I'm using my mittens. Safety first, people. Now, I'm going to put some in, and then I'm going to leave some out. But because I'm going to use this pan to cook, I'm just going to dump all of this onto a paper towel so that I can use it for the top. Now, when you mix the walnuts, don't go mixing crazy. We've already mixed everything. What you want to do is just fold it in. So folding in is taken from one side and then mix it over. Just like that. Now, this is good enough. Looks great. There's no flour or anything at the bottom of our pan. I'm going to put it into the pan, but before I do that, I'm going to line it with my paper and spray it. Now, when you line your pan, the reason why we're using this paper is to make it easy for cleanup. Smaller. So most loaf pans, unless they're a mini loaf, are pretty much the same size as far as I know. Now, although I'm putting this paper in here, I don't want my loaf to stick to the paper. So I'm going to spray it. Now, you don't have to, but it might stick, which I'm pretty sure it will. So just spray it, and then I'm going to pour my batter in, put some more walnuts on top, pop it in the oven. I'll show it to you before I pop it in the oven. Okay, so I'm back. I've poured the batter and the walnuts in here. Let me see if I could get you a better view. So this is everything. I sprinkled walnuts on top, and all of the little crumbs are there too because crumbs matter. They matter. Be kind to crumbs, okay? And use them. So everything is going to go into the oven, and this is going to bake for about 15 minutes. 50 minutes. So I'm going to set my timer to 50 minutes, and then when I come back, we'll see how it looks. Now, your oven setting may be a little bit different than mine, so if you need to check it sooner than 50 minutes, go ahead and do that. Make sure that you look at it. If it still looks wet, of course it's not done. If it looks pretty good and well done, not burnt, well done, you can use your toothpick to test it out. And if the toothpick comes out clean, then that means it's done. If it's still gooey, then that means you need to leave it in a little bit longer. My oven typically takes about 50 minutes. So when it's done, I will check it, I will show you, and then we'll leave it to rest. My oven did stop. I did not test it yet because I wanted to test it with you. So using my oven mitt, and it does have a split down the top, so it might be ready, but the true test is in the actual toothpick. So, let me lift this up so you can see. I have my bread here. I'm going to go in the center, stick it in, pull it out, clean. You can test it in a few other areas. It's clean. So that means we're good to go. I'm just going to leave this. I'm not going to leave it on the oven on the stove because the oven is still hot. So we're just going to leave it over here in this cooling area for now. If you have a cooling rack, you can use the cooling rack. If you don't, you can just leave it on your counter like I'm doing to just cool. So we have it sitting here, and make sure that you put something underneath. So I have my heat resistant pads there so that my counter doesn't get burnt or my now this one we are going to let cool for 10 minutes, and then we're going to come back, take it out, and let it cool for another 10 minutes, or you can just let it cool overnight. It really depends on when you plan to eat it and what you want to do. It does taste pretty awesome when it's still warm, and maybe you want to add a little butter, maybe you don't, but it does taste good warm. But if you let it cool off and in the morning, you can have it for breakfast. Okay, so it's been 10 minutes. My timer went off, so I'm going to clear that. Now I can just take it out of this. All I need to do is pull up the edges. And you see how easily that comes out. Now, it is greasy, so you might want to sit it on something else. And then you can see how beautiful it looks. Now, because I sprayed it with the spray, this peels off super easy. And then cleanup is fairly easy. Like I said, it's greasy from the butter and everything, but it's fine. I'm not going to eat this tonight, but thank you guys for spending this time with me. I really appreciate it. And like I said, I have so many more videos to come covering a lot of different content, but I would encourage you to like the video because I'm sure you did like it. Share it with other people who could find this useful or who may just like my channel. And then also subscribe so that you always know when I post a new video. So click, share, click like, share, and subscribe. I look forward to seeing you again. Until next time, good night.